Rocio, how do you feel about the TEA uh, passing this curriculum and how it looks like it's going to probably move forward on Friday potentially, and what it means for the public school system?
Really disappointed that they're doing this because they had the opportunity to provide a balanced curriculum that addresses different religions that are represented across the state of Texas. They failed to do that and they had that opportunity. Instead, these Bluebonnet materials go far beyond that important goal of promoting religious literacy. They instead still veer into straight up Bible study, indoctrination, and bad history. And, you know, Another important fact that I think is important to mention is the lack of transparency in a lot of this for parents in the development of these materials. TEA has refused to make public who wrote these lessons and what their qualifications were, and it won't release recommendations and guidance from the OER advisory board that was appointed by the Education Commissioner Mike Morath. We hope that this board will insist that commissioner respect parental rights and stop hiding this information from parents and guardians as TEA develops the OER materials going forward. They did take that preliminary vote that you mentioned today. They have the final vote on Friday, and we're hoping to get them to at least hold the line or get one more vote to reject these materials because they are unconstitutional and not a place for public schools.
Proponents of this type of curriculum say that it just gives better context to some of the materials that students are learning in the classroom. Uh, you don't feel that's what they're doing. You feel strongly that it is essentially Bible study when they're just trying to say, so this is where it comes from. It comes from the book of Daniel. This comes from another aspect of maybe Judaism or Hinduism.
Right. Something that's important to note is the way that they are phrasing a lot of this literature. They are stating things as historical fact instead of making a statement that some Christians believe this. And that is hugely problematic because if you were to see the report that we filed with Dr. David Brockman, which is a religious scholar and Christian theologian, him and a number of scholars point out that these lessons suggest that Christian faith claims are true. And public schools, which have students, like I mentioned, from a wide variety of faith backgrounds, can't do this. And we encourage folks to read the review by Dr. David Brockman and understand that these lessons, the way that they are framed, are not age appropriate and they don't belong in our public schools if they can't do it in a balanced way that talks about all religions and not favoring one above the others.
So what is next? If it passes Friday, and the soonest it will go into effect is potentially next school year. Um, what do what does an organization like yours do, or parents who are concerned?
Well, first and foremost is making sure that people are aware of what kind of curriculum their kids are going to be potentially learning in school. So this would go to all of the school districts. We have 1,200 school districts in the state of Texas. So what we are going to be doing if this goes to a vote on Friday, as it stands right now, 7 against 8 for, we will inform the public. We have a lot of our legal partners, for example, the ACLU of Texas, along with many of our partners, are signing a letter advising independent school districts to not take on this curriculum and pointing to the many faults with the curriculum. So really mobilizing people across the state to understand what this would mean for students, the kind of bullying and discrimination that they can expect to see from students in their classrooms, and pointing out the unconstitutionality of this curriculum.
And it's important to note that this is all up to each individual district and school. Is that correct? If it
Right.
passes.
If it passes, it is up to a vote for every school district to adopt. Another important note about that is one, that they are incentivizing school districts to adopt this by baiting them with more funding when our public schools in Texas are already drastically underfunded. The second point I want to make about the individual school districts voting on this is that you're going to have a different education in different parts of Texas. If some school districts adopt this and others don't, you will have some school districts that have more discrimination and bullying based off of a student and their family's religious background. And that is not something that we think belongs in public schools and in Texas.
And another thing, to just to point out, when I spoke to other proponents of this, they were mentioning that one of the reasons why the TEA was considering this is to raise up reading comprehension scores. Do you think that is a good reason or something that people should consider?
You can do that in a balanced way, is the main point that we want to make, right? We have no problem with religion being taught in schools if it is done in a balanced way that takes into account all religions and people that don't practice a religion. If we wanted to increase our reading scores, we would fund our public schools. We would provide teachers with real resources to be able to provide a quality education to our students across Texas. And we don't see that happening. So we encourage them to, you know, um, not adopt this. And if they wanted to come back, if they were to vote no on Friday, they could come back and actually provide a curriculum that is balanced. But one of the things that I want to point out is that advisory board that we mentioned, you have people, that political operatives that are stacked on that board, like Ben Carson, that have no right to be on that board, that don't understand how to actually write curriculum and are filled with bias that is clearly shown in the report that we have. But they simply don't understand this curriculum and have no business dictating what students are going to be learning in public schools.
And the curriculum that you're talking about is the Bluebonnet curriculum, right? So it that has to be modified in some way of maybe some things can stay and other things need to be replaced.
Right. For example, a big proponent of it that is problematic that we had some Republicans vote with us was it is not age appropriate. If you are talking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ as historically accurate, students are going to believe that one resurrection is real, and they're not preparing teachers to be able to have that conversation as questions come up. And so that is hugely problematic at that young age. This is for K through fifth grade. If a kindergartner is asking questions about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or they are being questioned in some of these lessons about what did God create on the first day, that is indoctrination. And that is not a place for our public schools and certainly not age appropriate in many of these lessons.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Did I miss anything that you wanted to touch on?
Let me think. No, I mean, I mentioned a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about. I think one thing that I think is really important to note is that we know that this is a push of a wider national agenda to push Christian nationalism. Texas is often the place where they vet a lot of these things. We've been seeing a lot of bills being filed in the legislature. Yesterday, we saw the Ten Commandments bill get filed again. And so we anticipate more bills filed in the legislature that will dictate what students are learning in school. And this is a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will send you the story once it airs tonight. The full story is gonna air tonight at 6 p.m. So I'll send it to you all after it airs, and then we'll keep in contact and, you know, keep our viewers updated with what's going on with the TEA and what they're doing with this particular.
Can I mention one more thing, actually?
Sure.
I'm not sure if y'all are interested in this, but I'm not sure how familiar you are with the political appointee by Governor Abbott.
No, go ahead.
So the current board as it stands, there are 10 Republicans and 5 Democrats. One of those Democrats uh, ran for office for the legislature, and so that seat was vacant. Um, Days before the special election in November, Abbott appointed a Republican to fill that vacancy when there was a Democrat, only a Democrat on the ballot that won her election, Tiffany Clark. The preliminary vote that happened earlier today was 7 against and 8 for Bluebonnet. That was a deciding vote. If we had a Democrat, Tiffany Clark, that should have been on that seat and voting, this Bluebonnet material would have been rejected. And so we want to point out that they're playing with the education of students in public schools and clearly playing political games. We want to mention that.